We've got sugar, spice, and everything nice and a drizzle of honey. And Trev is here. We want to know what you're driving and how your Thursday is coming along. Hashtag car culture, KE, and it's all about cars. So it's 2021. Some of you want an upgrade. You're looking for what's in the market and what you can afford and get. You don't want money no mingi. You want something that you can handle. And Trev is here to answer those questions. Welcome to the show, Trev.
Thank you very much.
It's been a week and I feel like, wow.
It's been eternity, you know?
It's forever. I was like, I need you to come back here because the coolest thing is when I see you, I know the weekend is here.
Yes.
So it's going to be a thing of ours.
Yes.
When I see Trev, I know the weekend is here. And of course, we get to talk about cars. I'm learning a lot.
Thank you.
And people are still buying cars
Yes.
in 2021, right after the nightmare that was 2020.
Yes.
Is there money for this?
Money is subjective to so many things, so many conditions. However, the appetite for new stuff is still there. Remember, we are a middle income country.
Yes.
And people are actually trying to upgrade themselves every year.
Right.
People might stretch themselves, but the appetite for new products is it's there.
Yeah.
So in our Kenyan market, I had mentioned this a week ago.
Yeah.
We have two splits. So you have new cars and grey imports. I don't like them calling used cars.
Yeah.
So on the grey import side, we are looking at cars that start from year 2014. Okay, because that's the government regulation that you cannot import a vehicle that's beyond 2014. So 2013 and earlier you can't. So 2014 onwards is the year. So
Wow, Trev.
We're looking at quite a number of cars that are coming into the market that are new, sort of new, quote unquote. And should I start? Where should I start?
First of all, you threw me off when you said 2013.
Yes.
That's old. That's a throwback.
Imagine.
I mean, I was just like, well, I mean, I could easily just get another car just from 2012,
Yes.
you know? So it's 2014.
Yes.
That's what the government...
Yes, on the grey import side.
Right.
So basically, any car that is built from 2014 onwards, you can import and you'll not be charged excess tariffs. Anything before that,
Yes.
you cannot get into the country legally. And there are quite a number of cars that are coming in, new models. So for example, I'll start with the Nissan Leaf. And there are quite a number of cars that you've seen on the road that are electric. Okay, so this is a hatchback that is fully electric and has a range of about 300 kilometers on full charge. Okay, so if you're busy, you can charge the car overnight. Probably take you about 8 hours on a standard charge. But if you have a fast charger, which many people don't have, probably take you about 3 hours.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, it's gorgeous. I'm looking at it. The 2020 Nissan Leaf.
Yes.
You can get it here in Kenya.
Yes, you can. Now, 2014, the first editions, those ones. You can get it now on our used car market, and it goes for roughly about 1.2 million shillings. So if you do your math properly, if you go around and check out the yards, you probably get one or two deals out there for that model. So for those who are in the Uber business or taxi business, basically, you're able to have a car that will be able to save you cost because you're able to drive the car basically around town for like a single or two charges, maybe in a day or two, and you're able to save a penny or two.
Wow. I'm just thinking about, people that buy cars and they're not used to what you just said, electric. What are the upsides?
Well, zero emissions. It means there is no exhaust coming out. There's no tailpipe for exhaust. So basically the car runs on a battery, just the way your cell phone has a battery that runs all the components. So it's a battery and a motor, and the motor is what drives the wheels. Okay. Now the advantage of that is, one, you don't need to fuel and stop and worry about fuel. What you're constantly looking at is, the charge bar. How you look at your phone and see, I'm on 58% or whatever. So basically it runs on electricity. And it's a wave that's coming in, like it or not. If you're not ready for that change, it's coming. So these cars, they have been in production for about 15 years now. Toyota were the first with the Toyota Prius. Then Nissan came with the Leaf, and many others are coming in now into that smaller category, affordable. Because one thing about electric cars is cost. Brand new, it's pretty expensive. Because battery technology hasn't developed to that level where it can be done on a mass scale. And then number two would be the range. So most manufacturers are trying to fit batteries that can last you on a traditional range. So, for example, if you're driving your car, on a full tank, you probably go here to Kisumu, and you don't need to top up again.
Yeah.
So that's roughly about 300 kilometers, almost.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with batteries. Try and get that technology back into those cars that can last you that kind of mileage. So that's the only issue. But it's constantly evolving. And now you've seen countries like in Europe, they're now giving waivers, tax rebates for people who are buying electric cars because, one, they're becoming green. So you're saving the environment. So, Europe is very keen on that. And number two, congestion. Basically, cars that are electric are allowed to get into those non-congested areas of, say, London or Oslo, those areas. But in Kenya also, surprisingly, last year, the government actually passed a 10% waiver for anybody who's buying an electric car. So I don't know if people read that or skipped that, but
Right.
the wave is coming, slowly coming.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. And of course, you do have those mega electric cars, those supercars. So you have the Tesla Model S, which I love. It is as fast as anything you'd ever think. It's faster than AMG, faster than a Porsche. Those things are crazy. So it's silent, but extremely fast. And then the sensation is not like your car. It's like on and off, like bang, and the thrill is just amazing.
Fantastic.
Yes.
You mentioned Europe.
Yes.
And it's been 15 years since this brilliant innovation, but there's questions on the practicality on the continent.
Yes.
Unajua gari naisha charge and you're somewhere.
Yes.
Caught up in traffic. I mean, I'm thinking about a layman
Yes.
who may not have 100% knowledge on this.
Yes.
The government may be embracing the idea,
Yeah.
trying to encourage the purchase of these cars.
Yes.
It's a new wave, as you said, it's here with us. But the practicality on the continent, TIA,
Yes.
we have our own challenges. Do you think, when someone is trying to purchase the car, they would consider, are we there yet to see people willing, without, being convinced that much, this is the car to buy? What will it take? Because there's definitely still a huge majority of people who still prefer to have mafuta kwa gari, and that's just their thing. So when you speak like this, there's someone who doesn't know the ins and outs of that.
Yes.
And wow, this is a brilliant idea, but maybe just not for me. What would you say to them?
Well, there's one thing I love about Kenya and Africa in general. We are early adopters of technology.
Right.
We're not like Europe, where they adopted certain technologies very slowly and then picked up. Already we have early converters in Kenya. Already. We have taxi companies that are running on pure electric vehicles, and they're running around. I saw a couple of months ago, there's a company that is converting huge SUVs into electric cars, and they're using it for safaris and things like that. So they're early adopters. In Uganda, there's a company called Kira. They build buses that are fully electric. So if you're thinking about that conversation of being green as a country, you're trying to reduce emissions, then they're early adopters of that, and the idea is certainly gaining traction in the region.
Yeah.
And I can tell you for a fact that with our institutions, our smart people, our young people, some certain ideas that maybe Europeans don't have,
Right.
might just start here. So, for example, we are blessed with so much sun. So we've never seen solar charging stations. Okay, so you have like a solar charging station at, say, a petrol station.
Right.
So traditionally, you go and get your coffee, park your car, and the solar station will have like a fast charge. So take about half an hour to charge your car. They haven't thought about that because they knew.
Trev, you're on national radio. You need to patent that. You need to jack that idea before it gets jacked. But I like what you're saying. And I think that's why you're here, when you mention these things. And we need to keep up with the wave. And,
Yes.
the future is here. It's a revolution. And there's room for ideas and stuff like this.
Correct.
So there's a question that came through last week, and I'm going to get into it, but there's also another one. But there's a conversation we must have. Someone here is saying, shout out to Trev. This is Alan. He's saying, shout out to Trev. I'm glad you're listening in. Get on the hashtag spicefm.co.ke, and of course Spice Drive and Car Culture KE. Stream on spicefm.co.ke. Don't forget that. There's a good one here, and it's all about fuel. And it's great that we're having this conversation here today. Looking forward to Thursday because of this. So as much as we're having the new cars coming into the Kenyan market, even last time when you were here, we talked about fuel efficiency. What are the dangers of driving on an empty tank? This has happened to many people.
Yes.
I'm not going to say where I was and what I was doing, but this has happened to me as well. And I thought to myself, I know my car and I know what it's capable of doing. And I know I'm going to get home. I have enough. So we may not realize what happens to our cars when we drive on an empty tank.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Well, that's an interesting topic. And if you start from a layman's point of view,
Yeah.
driving on empty
Yeah.
is a risky business. First, for your safety,
Yes.
because you could get stuck anywhere, and we're a country where we haven't really developed rescue services per se. And it's more, I wouldn't say it's more only on the urban areas, but just imagine if you're in a lonely road and you're alone and you get stuck, then you're vulnerable at that point.
Yes.
So best practice would be just make sure that you have enough fuel
Yeah.
to get you home or to get you wherever you need to be.
Right.
And you also map out your route because you can't just drive and go. You need to-
Overestimate.
yes,
Yeah.
you need to find out where you're stopping, where, this is the closest petrol station. If I have any issue with my car, where's the next place I can stop and be safe and be able to get help if my car breaks down. But speaking about that fuel, in the fuel tank, there's something called a fuel pump. Okay, it's an electric motor that pumps fuel from the tank to the engine. Okay, now being an electric motor, it heats up, and the fuel sort of cools that whole motor to be in that optimum level where it can operate perfectly, to be able to deliver enough pressure into the engine so that you're able to drive effectively.
Right.
Now, if you go low, extremely low to the level where the motor is exposed and doesn't have that cooling effect of the fuel,
Yeah.
then it tends to overburn, and you'll have chances are you might even burn your fuel pump, which is again very expensive to replace, especially for the German cars. Okay, so it's very important for you to make sure that you have just enough fuel. And how do you know that you have enough fuel in your tank? Now, in the older cars, if you drive normally and then the first light comes in, it's telling that it's warning you that you're low on fuel. On average, that'll be a tenth of the tank, a tenth. So on an estimate of about 50 liters, that's the average of most cars, that will probably take you about 60 kilometers, give or take, depending on the condition of your car and so many other factors. So it'll come on, then go off. Then the second time it comes on again, it means you're half of that tenth. So you have about 30 kilometers remaining. Okay? Then it'll go off again. Now, when it becomes constant on, then you have about 10 to 15 kilometers before it runs dry. So you need to find out and know which is the best place that you can fuel your car. Now, the modern cars, they have digital readouts that will tell you X amount to empty. And even those, when the level is too low, it can't really read the amount of fuel in the tank. So you can use that estimate to ensure that you are safe wherever you are. So those are the tips that you need to know when you're driving your car on empty. One, dangerous for your fuel pump, for your own safety, and then also, again, you don't want to incur costs when you're trying to repair that.
You are so handy. You were talking about cars and you talk about fuel, but when you said don't drive on empty, I thought that you were like a therapist or something. That's general good advice, even if, it's on your, on a personal level. And yeah, we've got Soul Food here as well. More comments are coming in and some questions for big boy Trev. There's one here that came in last week and we had to let you go before we answered it. And I want you to answer it before I get into another one. They're streaming in. I want to shout out Meringechu. I also see Becky Odhiambo on my feed. Someone asked about the Subaru Impreza versus the Mitsubishi Evo, and which one?
Personal preference, or
I think you can give your personal preference, and then what the perks are, and
Okay.
the upsides and the drawbacks for each.
I'm going to be very brief but very precise with the answer. Now, both of these cars are Japanese.
Right.
They were built in the early 90s when rallying was bigger than even Formula One.
Yeah.
So there's a rule change and regulation change,
Right.
where you had to create a smaller car than the traditional saloon car that were fast, have four-wheel drive, and have a 2-liter engine, so that your vehicle can fit into the World Rally Championship. Okay. Now, Subaru were the first to start with the Impreza. Okay, so it was a different formula then. So when it came out, they had a star driver, Colin McRae, who began and understood the car very well from the beginning. And the advantages of that car was it was light, it weighed under 1,200 kilograms, it had symmetrical all-wheel drive, which Subaru normally has, basically meaning the symmetry between the engine layout and the drivetrain is at par. It's equal, so that you're able to transmit adequate power to both axles, so front and back, without going too technical about that.
Yeah.
And that was a marriage made in heaven. Okay, so it won rallies. The car was very successful, and it became the halo product for Subaru.
Yeah.
All right, and some of us grew up in that era, and we have stickers of Kelly McRae on the on our walls and things like that. But Mitsubishi followed suit right after with the Evolution. It was based on the Mitsubishi Lancer family, again following the same formula: 2-liter, all-wheel drive, 300 horsepower. So they were almost head-to-head in as far as the build quality is concerned and performance. But now, because both products became halo products, there's a certain liking about Subaru, and in my view, I think I should probably say this. If you're looking for soul, emotion, then the 6 stars Subaru would be the vehicle for you, because the raw power of the flat 4 boxer engine, the turbocharged, the growl, they call it the growl, and the exhaust, it just, heightens your senses,
Right.
as you'd call it. You feel that you're driving a car that has heritage, has a lot of soul in it, and performance.
Right.
For Mitsubishi, it's not shouty, but it is precise. It is as sharp as a Japanese warrior's sword. It's very precise. The steering is sharp. It handles extremely well, even slightly better than an STI in many other factors. So when it comes to what should I pick, it depends on your preference. So if you love a car that's got soul, I'd probably go for the Subaru STI. If you want, driving agility, sharpness, I'd go for the Evo.
Wow. I'm just here for the Big Boy Trev podcast. I'm ready for it. And also, you've got your weekly spread in the Standard. Tell us about that.
Yes, so every Wednesday, I normally write on the Standard on Wednesday, the Motor Digest. And the cars that I reviewed last week, actually yesterday, were the Volvo XC90, which is one of the best looking SUVs in town, and of course the Land Rover Discovery for inscription for the grey market. So if you love cars and you want more details about different cars, please, every Wednesday, make sure you get a copy of the Standard and be able to read quite a lot from my column.